All right, today we're getting into a story that's got everything: elite sports, deeply held faith, and a whole lot of public controversy. It's the story of one of India's most brilliant cricket stars who suddenly found herself right in the middle of a storm that would test pretty much everything: her career, her beliefs, and even where she belonged.
Just think about it for a second. You're at the absolute top of your game, a hero to millions of people, and then bam, this is the headline you see next to your name. This was the shocking reality for Jemimah Rodrigues. And a headline like this, it definitely raises a ton of questions. So that's really the big question we're going to unpack. How on earth did one of India's most loved athletes get tangled up in something that spiraled so completely out of control? To figure that out, we've got to go right back to the beginning. Okay, first up, a star, a club, an accusation. Let's dig into the exact moment it all kicked off. So, picture this. It's October 2024. The Gymkhana, this really exclusive, prestigious club in Mumbai, suddenly decides to revoke the honorary membership they had given to Jemimah Rodrigues for her amazing achievements in cricket. I mean, you can imagine the question on everyone's mind was just, why? And this is where it gets really explosive. The club's official line was that its property was being used for organized events that broke their rules against religious functions. Specifically, they called them conversion events. And that one single, incredibly loaded word, conversion, is what turned a private club dispute into a massive national headline. But to really get why this hit such a nerve, you've got to understand the person at the heart of it all. So let's talk about who Jemimah Rodrigues actually is. You know, Jemimah isn't just any cricketer. She is a phenomenal talent who made her debut for India when she was just 17 years old. She's famous for her explosive batting, and off the field, she's known for this infectious, super positive energy. And one thing that was never, ever a secret is that she comes from a devout Christian family. Her father, Ivan, isn't just her coach, he's also very involved in their faith community. And look, this quote says it all. This is from way back in 2015, long before she became a household name. It shows just how openly she's always connected her faith with her career. It wasn't some new thing, it's a core part of who she is. And you've got to keep this in mind, because this very openness was later used against her when the whole thing blew up online. All right, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What exactly was happening at the Gymkhana that led them to take such a huge step? Yeah, so this wasn't just a one-off thing. Her father, even, had booked the club's facilities somewhere between 35 and 40 times for what were described as family prayer meetings. So you can kind of see how the sheer frequency of these gatherings might have started to raise some eyebrows among other club members. And this is where we get two totally different stories about the exact same events. On the one hand, you have the club. Their claim was that these were organized religious functions, basically trying to convert people, which was against their rules. But on the other side, you have the family. They said, whoa, hold on. These were just private prayer gatherings, open to anyone who wanted to come, but there was no pressure, no coercion. They also made a point to say that the second the club raised a concern, they stopped. Period. So, of course, once the media got a hold of this story, it didn't stay a private matter for long. It spilled online and, well, you know how that goes. It became a full-on social media firestorm. So you had one camp, the critics, who really latched onto this narrative. The accusation was that Jemimah's celebrity status was being used as a magnet to attract people to these meetings, that her cricket fame was being used for religious purposes. But then you had a whole other group, her fans, her supporters, who saw it completely differently. For them, this was a clear-cut case of religious discrimination. They were basically saying, wait a minute, she's being attacked just because she's a Christian. But you know, this wasn't just some abstract debate happening in the comments section. Beyond all the headlines and the hashtags, there was a really profound and pretty painful human cost to this whole controversy. And we heard it from Jemimah herself. In an interview the next year, she opened up about the devastating personal impact of it all. The online hate was so brutal that, in her own words, it made me question if I belonged in the game or even in my country. Just let that sink in for a moment. That's the real person behind the public figure. So let's just do a quick run-through of how this all played out. It all kicked off in October 2024 with the club's decision. By November, it had erupted into a full-blown social media war. In December, her father released a statement trying to clear the air, and then by early 2025, the focus shifted to the very real mental health toll this had taken on Jemimah. So where did all the dust finally settle?
Well, first off, it's really important to know that no legal charges were ever filed. This never went to court, it stayed a dispute at the club level. But its impact was so much bigger. It became a cultural flashpoint in conversations about religion and identity in India. And maybe most concretely for Jemimah, during this incredibly intense period, she was also briefly dropped from the national team.
Ultimately, Jemima's story leaves us with this really difficult and, frankly, increasingly relevant question. For public figures, athletes, artists, anyone in the spotlight, where does their private belief end and their public persona begin? In a world where every single action can be seen and judged by millions, who gets to draw that line? It's something to really think about.